So we have a panel of experts that we're going to do a little presentation and question and answers. So I'm going to ask my panelists all to come forward and take a seat. Your name is right in front of your seat. If you'd come forward and take a seat. When you're ready to speak this. For those of you who don't know, my name is Everton Spencer, and I'm one of your elders here at our church. And I have some questions that were posed to us from over the past couple of weeks from the members of the church. But to get started, what I'm going to ask each panelist to do is to take a few minutes and just tell us a little bit about themselves and their area of practice, and then we will delve in. So, Dr. Jean-Pierre, we'll start with you first.
I'm Dr. Jean-Pierre. I'm a board-certified internal medicine, and I'm also a registered pharmacist. I work for Lakeland Regional at the Family Health Center. We mostly community-based primary care, so we treat patients for cough and cold, coronary artery disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, and also educate the community on how to mitigate or disease prevention. And also we do a lot of teaching for weight loss, tobacco cessation, and we also touch on mental health.
Dr. Thomas? You can stay seated if you like. You don't have to.
And I'm Lorna. I have been practicing mental health for the past 31, almost 32 years. So I'm giving away my age. And I have practiced in various areas. I work with the county as the clinical manager for mental health in one of their programs. And so I deal with a variety of mood disorders, anxiety, and everyday stressors that brings people into contact with mental health providers. I also I have a small private practice, and I work in that practice providing specific sex offenders treatment. I treat people who have offended sexually. So I do that on a part-time. There was a time when I worked for 5 years in a civil commitment center treating men with that unfortunate propensity. Okay, so that's me.
All right, so thank you. You know, Dr. Mills, we heard about you this morning, but if you'd like to share a few minutes about yourself, and so please do, for those who were not here this morning.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Milton Mills. I am a critical care and internal medicine physician. I do in-hospital critical care, working in the ICU, and then outpatient internal medicine work and outpatient clinics. And then I also do a lot of lecturing on the kinds of things we've been talking about today, how to modify your diet and lifestyle to reduce your risk for chronic disease and or reverse certain chronic diseases once they have developed. And I'm really committed to helping people try and take control of their life by changing their diet, because an ounce of prevention is worth a couple tons of cure.
Thank you. Dr. Pearson? Just slide up. There you go.
Yes, I am Henry Pearson. I am a ND, Doctor of Naturopathy. And for the past 32 or so years, my wife, Richette, and we have concentrated as we are known as herbalists. This is where we have put most of our emphasis. Now, while we realize that there are 8 natural doctors, fresh air, water, sunshine, all of those, when it comes to nutrition, you have to have a balanced nutrition if you want to have a better life, because basically, or fortunately or unfortunately in some cases, we are what we eat. And when it comes to the herbs are phytochemicals or plant chemicals that can help to jumpstart the body in whatever direction you're trying to go. It can help to cleanse the system. Of course, water is the best cleanser. And so while we specialize in herbs, and there is something basically for everything God has put here on the planet for us. It's not just a matter of taking an herbal capsule and looking for a miracle. You have to put yourself to be part of your own quote-unquote cure. And if you do that, change your lifestyle. Everything I've heard today goes hand in hand with what we do. And herbs, again, are just another method to working, hopefully, in conjunction with your primary care physician and helping yourself to do better, helping yourself. And because we all are our own best doctors. We know ourselves better than anyone else. So take control of your own health. And if you need an herb, we're here to help you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we have Dr. Daniel Haight.
I'm a professor over at the USF Morsani College of Medicine in Tampa, so I get to teach medical students who want to become doctors, and I teach nurses who want to be nurses. And I've specialized in both internal medicine and infectious diseases. So normally I talk about diarrhea and vomiting. I won't do that today. So, today's not an infectious disease day, but I do have a passion over what was just said, prevention and empowerment, that, the most important person at that doctor's office is the patient. And the family and the patient need to have their questions answered, and they need to have the time to be able to understand, how do I stay comfortable and healthy as possible. I work for the Lakeland Regional Medical Center. I do community outreach.
Thank you. We've been given a number of questions, and I've kind of broken them down into categories. But I do believe that mental health is very important, especially what we've been through for the past couple of years, dealing with the pandemic, and the mental state of all of us is quite important in terms of our well-being. One of the things as a healthcare practitioner, I always tell, we focus a lot on the mental attitude, because we feel that the mental aspect of your health is the first trigger in trying to get a person healthy. So one of the questions that was asked, mindfulness. Can you talk, Dr. Thomas, can you talk a little bit about mindfulness and then elaborate a little bit on how our mental well-being affects the health, the overall health of the individual. And the panelists, after she finishes, please jump in and with her, okay? Go ahead.
So mindfulness, when we hear the word mindfulness, you know, we're thinking of some big phenomenon, which is probably not. And, you know, people have said to you, be mindful of so-and-so. So when they said to be mindful of so-and-so, what do you think they're saying to you? Let me hear you. It means paying attention on purpose, being aware of what the moment is unfolding, what is going on in the moment. Because what you've just said, adverse childhood experiences and other traumas along the pathway, including what happened with COVID and all of that, has taken our brain off track and put it on autopilot. So we find ourselves stressing about a lot of things. And because of that, we're not living in the moment. We're not present in the moment because we're all over the place on autopilot, worrying about the past, what has happened to us, didn't happen, or what was good about it or not good, and fearing the future. This fear and dread that something is going to happen that is going to destroy us or is not good for us. So what mindfulness does, it brings the brain back on track. So you stay in the moment, because if you think about it, we are hardly is everywhere we are. So if you were to call me up now and say, hey, what you doing? What's on your mind? I'm way in the future there. Or way back here. Never right here. And so the beginners, and I tell you something about the beginner's mind is a powerful thing. There are 9 attitudes that I wanted to share, but we're not going to have time for that. A beginner's mind. So all of us came here this morning as experts. We came because we heard there was a health seminar and we wanted something out of it. And we came with ideas, opinions, demands, expectations, and all of that. Okay? Oh, I'm sorry. And so we came with expectations and all of that. So when we come, if we don't hear what we came to get, we become what? Huh? Disappointed. We feel disappointed. We get confused and so on and so forth, and we leave with not so good a taste. But if we come with a beginner's mind, we allow the moment to unfold. And as the moment unfolds, we figure out how we can connect to this moment, because this is all we have. And then we come into the relationship, non-judging. We're not judging. There's no demand, there's no expectation. It allows you to be open and to be free. And you realize the respect, and that you realize that you can be you with me. And as the moment unfolds and you stay in it, it is transforming and healing. I hope I answered your question. Anybody else?
Well, I see this as if I was going to be walking from here to the store, I don't want to bring with me, you know, an argument I had or a problem I had, or I don't want to be worried about the future. On that walk to the store, I want to be looking at the trees. I want to be looking at the clouds. I want to be paying attention to, you know, what I see, because that to me is relaxing. My head is not going 100 miles an hour. I'm in the moment, and I think I'm concentrating on my walk. And I think we need to give our minds a rest, because our blood pressure and our sugar and all our other things don't need the stress. So that's a great point you made.
Because we know that the mind is a very powerful tool. What the mind thinketh, you know, sometimes we think about things, and what the mind projects actually sometimes happens. So, you know, I can say, well, I see all these symptoms that I may have this disease, and I tell myself that based on all these symptoms, I have this disease, and actually I do not, because my mind, I have my mind telling me that this is happening. So the mind is a very powerful organ within the body. But this week I was reading an article, and it focused a little bit on the new sickness that is happening in the country. And it's not related to COVID, but they said it's a subset of the COVID pandemic, and it has to do with anxiety, nervousness. Can you talk a little bit about that? This new phenomenon that we're seeing, because so many individuals have suffered from the COVID pandemic, and then those individuals who have not gotten COVID, they're seeing this anxiety, and they're seeing all this mental health issues that are arising out of the pandemic for individuals who have not suffered from COVID. So can we talk a little bit about that, the anxiety issue that we are seeing?
So yes, I think anxiety and depression has spun out of control, especially in the past 2 years with the unknown. And we have a way of becoming very fearful and anxious. So it's fear and trepidation of something that we think is going to happen, or something that is real. So we have it is either perceived or real. And we become, and what it does, again, it takes our brain off track. You know, our thinking brain off track. And because it takes it off track, it distracts it. It distracts you from focusing on what is germane to the moment. And so you're worrying about, you know, am I going to get COVID? What is going to happen to us? Can I go back out? Am I going to be able? And you worry about a lot of things that you perceive that is going to happen based on what has already happened or hasn't happened yet. So then you find people, and I'll give you an example. A client asked me last week, I think it was, I was having a session with her, and she said something about the war in Ukraine. And she said, do you think that America is going to be a part of the war? We're going to have war in America because of what is happening in Ukraine? And I took a look at it, and I said, you know, from what I am seeing and hearing, I don't think so. And even I think Putin has a problem, but he's not that foolish. I don't think he's just that foolish to run over here and make war with America. But I talked to her, and she said to me, my friend and I have been talking, and we think we're going to have a war. And she went off, and she is distressed. She's just in her 30s. But you see what is going on? She's having this distress because she believes, and she has a friend, they've spoken, and they believe that we're going to be in a war. So when you, now, so what is true? So we start looking at what is true. There's a war going on in Ukraine. What is true? We look at what is true. Tell me now what isn't true, but maybe possible. And then you look at what isn't true. And a lot of times their focus is more on what isn't true than what is untrue. So you bring their brain back by having them check the facts and help them to see that. So in other words, there's a lot of anxiety that is going around. And mindfulness helps us to help the client, help the person bring themselves back. The other thing that you do for anxiety is what we call a resource team. Who are the people on your list of resources? Or what are the things you have at your disposal that you think you can use when you're starting to feel anxious? Okay, so therefore, you know then, and then you have you have the tools. You have the tools to use if you start getting anxious. So, because you have the tools to use, if you start getting anxious, then it decreases the likelihood that that anxiety will spin out of control. But you have to let people know that they have the resource.
Thank you.
Yes, and going back to the mind and the importance of the mind, what we have discovered a long time ago is that the mind does control the body. If you wake up in the morning and say, I feel terrible, well, then the body says, oh, we need to start feeling bad. And you literally will feel bad all day. The reverse side of that, and what we've had to do with clients, is give them something to read that's positive. If you read that, or just say to yourself, oh, I feel great today, oh, everything is wonderful, then even your immune system will kick into high gear to suppress those things that could actually cause you a problem. So we are also what we think. So please, for healing purposes of your body and your mind, think positive. It can only help you.
I just wanted to add something to Dr. Thomas' point, that being mindful help you to stay where you are, as the Bible said that, leave tomorrow for tomorrow and live for the day. Because what I find with a lot of patients, they become restless or they complain, well, I can't shut up my mind at night. It goes on and I can't sleep. And it's only, triggered. They can't sleep at night, then they wake up very tired and they feel more anxious. So it's like a cycle that they cannot end.
Thank you. I'm going to get to the audience in a moment, but I need to move us along. I want to change over to another topic based on the questions that were submitted. There seems to be a lot of concern about cancer. So my medical doctors, would you talk a little bit about what things you can, symptoms are things that a person can look at to see if they do have, are precancerous, and then what are some of the treatments or some of the things available with individuals who are concerned that they have cancer?
Well, first it starts, as we've mentioned, knowing yourself and knowing family. And if I know that my family members have had colon cancer or have had prostate cancer, have had breast cancer, some of them, their increased risk, breast and colon cancer, would be a little red flag. If I heard that my grandfather had colon cancer or my grandmother had breast cancer or my mother had breast cancer, that at least lets you know I want to have that as a topic I'd like to discuss. Then you can look at prevention, things that I can do to lower my risk. The foods we eat can clearly lower cancer. There are other issues of smoking can lower cancer. Then there are some other preventative medicines. There is a vaccine that prevents cancer, and I was talking to the healthcare providers outside that are there to check blood pressure and sugar levels, and I asked them a little quiz question. What was the first vaccine to prevent cancer? Does anyone know? Many of you have had it, which is good news. Every diabetic should have this vaccine. Now, it's actually the hepatitis B vaccine, because that's a germ that if you catch hepatitis B, it stays with you for life, and it irritates your liver. Now, in some folks, it stays quiet for their entire life. Other folks, hepatitis B really irritates the liver, but since it stays with you a long time, irritates you a lot, cancer sort of comes out of constant irritation like that. So liver cancer. But we've heard about a new vaccine called the Hpv vaccine, which prevents 6 kinds of cancer. Now, we usually recommend that for very young kids because we want to get it to be before they get the risk for it. But it can prevent throat cancer and other cancers. So you can do things to prevent. And then lastly, be on the lookout for things that don't fit. Now, if a young person gets back pain, what do you think the cause is? Now, the young person might think, is it cancer? But no, they probably strained a muscle, all the hard work we're doing. But if a 70-year-old develops back pain out of the blue, well, I think of other things. Now, more commonly, it could be a fracture. You know, sometimes we get a little shorter as we get older. Sometimes we have little breaks in the bone that causes pain. But then sometimes it could be a growth around the backbone causing pain. And so new back pain that doesn't get better with treatment, you know, we start to look for signs. But we have those screening tests. So lastly, not only knowing your family history, but getting the screening, colonoscopy. And they just changed their recommendations to get your first colonoscopy at a little younger age, or at least get a screening test that looks at colon cancer. And of course, there's a lot of information out about how to prevent cervical cancer, breast cancer. Prostate cancer, a little more of needing a conversation with your doctor. You know, what's the best strategy to do for that? So cancer is certainly a topic, and you all have a good sort of start because you're already raising your awareness.
Thank you. Dr. Mills?
I want to ask you guys a question. If I ask you, what's the natural diet for a cow? What's the natural diet for an elephant? What's the natural diet for a giraffe? Leaves. Leaves. So it's all plants, right? What is the only time in those animals' lives that they eat animal protein? Do they ever eat animal protein? Never? Think about it. When they're babies, they are eating animal protein. They're eating their mother's milk, and it's full of animal protein. And my point is this, that for plant-based animals, animal protein is a growth signal. When they become adults, they should not be eating animal protein. Because when their body sees animal protein, it interprets it as a growth signal. And the same thing happens in your body. When you put animal protein in your body interprets it as a growth signal. It starts pumping out a growth hormone called insulin-like growth factor, and it turns on growth genes called mTOR genes that tell your cells to try and proliferate. And studies show that human adults who eat animal protein are 75% more likely to die early and have a 4-fold increase in cancer. So my point is that if you want to lower your risk for cancer, get off the animal protein. If you have cancer, stop eating animal protein because it will markedly, number one, accelerate the growth of the cancer, and it will increase your risk for developing cancer. It's real simple, folks. So please, if you want to lower your risk for cancer, stop eating animal protein. If you have cancer, get off of it.
I know we've been emphasizing plant-based diet, but at the same time, sometimes vegetarian can be eating a lot of processed food. So this is something that we have to be really aware of what we eat as vegetarian or vegan, because there's a lot of vegetarian food that's worse than eating meat because they're very processed. That being said, there's a lot of processed vegetarian meat out there, so we have to be careful what we eat as being vegetarian and when we say that. And at the same time, I know we cover pretty much all the bases. Trying to keep our weight under control is also a good thing to do for cancer prevention. If you go to Burger King, they have a plant-based burger that they advertise as for vegetarian. But if you look at what's in it, it's worse than eating a beef burger. So it's the same thing. You go to the supermarket, they have all this. So we have to, when we said a plant-based, okay. When we said plant-based, so eat your beans, eat your legume, eat your veggies, but be conscious of what you're eating. Those cans that we buy from the canned food that we buy vegetarian, a lot of them are very processed.
Dr. Mills is trying to have a heart attack up here. But let me say this to you. We talk. When I hear somebody says to me, "When you eat this, you won't have this," that's an absolute, and I can't accept that. Okay, so that's a cognitive distortions. If you eat this, the likelihood of this happening to you decreases. I can accept that. But when I hear absolutes, that is why we have these mental health illnesses. Because people think in terms of absolutes. No, I didn't say you did. But probably you did. Okay. I think you did, but I didn't say you did. But anyway, I think you did, but because I tell you. I didn't say that was the statement, and you made that make it. But anyway, let that stay. Let that stay. But I didn't say you'd said it.
Dr. Pearson, I'm going to come to you, but I need to make
but I still want you to hear this. What I hear, what I'm wanting, what I am choosing to hear is that there are things that I can do that will help me to stay healthy. And somebody else may do those same things, and it may not keep them healthy. However, if it is not going to make you worse, it probably is a good thing to do that until, in my mind, until God gives you more light. Until what? Until God gives you more light.
Okay, I need to make a quick PSA, one moment. The owner of a tan Chevy truck, license plate IC19TI, you're blocking someone's vehicle. If you could please move that for me, please. The owner of a tan Chevy truck, if you could please move that vehicle, you're blocking someone who needs to leave. All right, so let me get Dr. Pearson, then we'll come back to you, Dr. Mills.
Well, as I said before, fortunately or maybe unfortunately in some cases, we really are what we eat. And because our systems are designed, well, just look at the teeth in your mouth. We have grinding teeth, the kind that is for plants, the kind of teeth that cows and whatever have. If you see in the animals that eat other animals, they have fangs. And if you see somebody with fangs, you're going to be going through it. So it's not a natural food for us, animal protein. And there are many, many cases of folks that have reversed these debilitating diseases. God does the healing. God is the supreme healer. If we fall in line with what He has said for us to do, then it's easier for Him to heal us. But we have to take charge. And as far as the processed things, we recommend simple foods, simply prepared. You can make all of this stuff that's out there as a substitute. I heard earlier about prep time. That's a must. You must have the time to prepare your food. If you get fast food, well then, thank you.
Okay, and now I got to tell you guys about this because this has been a question. People, this is one of the things that people always pull out of their hip pocket. Well, them plant foods are so processed, and it's better to eat, a dead corpse than to eat a processed veggie burger. Yeah, okay, well, they put it to the test. This was a crossover study done at Stanford University, my alma mater, where they compared Beyond Meat products to dead flesh. Okay, so for the first half of the study, people ate dead animals, and one group ate dead animals. The other group ate Beyond Meat burgers. And then at the crossover point, the dead animal group switched to Beyond Meat, and the Beyond Meat switched to dead animals. And what they found was that while the people were eating the Beyond Meat burgers, their weight went down, their cholesterol went down, their TMAO, trimethylamine oxide, went down, and so their health parameters improved on the Beyond Meat burgers, and they got worse on the dead animals. When they crossed over, the exact opposite happened. So across the board, the people on the plant burgers did better. So am I saying that you should build your entire life eating Beyond Meat products? No. But there is no question that it is healthier for you than eating a dead corpse. So I don't want to hear that anymore, period. And the study was published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. Okay, the reference is right here.
Dr. Pierre, do you
There's science.
Dr. Pierre, do you want to respond? Please.
Would you like to see it?
I don't eat meat.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
No, okay.
All right, so
Okay.
panel.
Okay.
panel,
I want to shift the gear to something else.
So
Let me go ahead.
well, everything we
Just a
do,
minute.
we are all here together.
Apart from the fact that we're all here together, that you are going live. And what that means is that don't do anything you can't take back. Don't say anything you can't take back. Trust me, there's nothing I want to say.
So I think everything comes down to moderation. Moderation is the key to everything that we do. Because yes, when I look at what's on the vegetarian meat that we consume, my big concern is that the processing and the amount of salt that is in it contributes to other things. So it goes back to moderation in what we do, how much of what we intake, and what we eat. So let's keep that in mind when we look at things. I'm going to give you a minute, and then we need to jump to another subject, and then I want to open up to the audience to take some questions. So go ahead.
I wanted to go back to anxiety and distress. And one of the things that Dr. Pearson alluded to is positive, having a positive outlook, which is an attitude of gratitude, which is one of the attitude to cultivate of mindfulness. So a body that is relaxed cannot entertain anxiety. So the two cannot exist together. Okay? So what I would like for you to do is to learn to be relaxed. Stay in the moment. And and I'm saying this to you, when you're desensitizing someone, you start out with something that is less frightening and provoking, and see if they stay and maintain a relaxed self. And if they do, you bring something in that is a little more frightening, and you keep increasing that, and watch to see if that person is able to maintain being relaxed. And if they're able to do that, then they get to the place now where you bring in that fear object. And if that person is able to maintain a relaxed stance in the here and the now, that fear has left that person. It's no longer a frightening thing. You no longer have to flee or try to fight, because you've overcome it. You can maintain, because we want to be calm. We want to be calm. We want to be relaxed. We want to be at peace. We want to have inner peace, which is freedom from internal emotional conflict and distress. And so if the distressing thing can come and face you, and you're no longer frightened and afraid and nervous by it, it means that that thing is no longer a threat, and your anxiety over that thing has gone into remission or disappeared. So learn to, what will relax you, what can help you to stay calm. And when you learn that, it means, taking some deep breath. And mindfulness says, feel the breath. And feel it. And feel it. Do you watch my hand dropping the mic?
Dr. A?
Amen to that, because of the fear, and to move away from that and to be in the time is important. But I also, to take another step beyond, once you conquer your fear, is somebody had mentioned something very important earlier before we started, was about how I love ice cream every night. And, do you take ice cream now and then? And she said, well, actually then and then. I love that line. And I said, that's a lot like me. And, it's something like, whether it's ice cream or cookies or something that I know on advice of a dietitian, I really shouldn't be eating this. There was all this emphasis on what we should be eating. But I know when that does happen, and I do have that, I know I don't fear it, which is an important thing we need to avoid, but I feel bad about doing it. I enjoy it and I feel bad. And I think that's something we have to get away from, is not to beat yourself up over this, but it's, again, reminding about the advice I have received about nutrition, what I'm trying to do, and if I do have a mistake where I eat something I shouldn't, could I try to eat less of it, try to move away, find alternatives, find those healthier foods. But please don't feel bad or guilty or hide it. It's something that it happens. I'm human. I'm going to do better. I'm going to listen. I'm going to learn. And I think so. We've got fear we want to stay away from, but we don't want to get into beating self up.
Self-flagellation, to flag ourselves.
Yes, and so if Dr. Thomas, could you add a little bit to that, because I don't want to feel.
See, so
regret.
then when I hear you said I eat it and then I feel so bad about it, and then I ask you, tell me some more of where, because there's a message somewhere. Okay, there's a message somewhere that you pull a file that says naughty. Where did that origin? Where did that origin?
Could start from childhood, all.
Yes, and so let's take a look at it, because so we can't correct everything that happened in the past, but let's see how it is interfering with the here and the now. So whatever is interfering with the here and the now is what we're going to try to work on. So because I'm going to try to work on it right now, it means that it will have less power over me tomorrow. Because then this feeling bad and beating up on yourself and never succeeding and all of that is not good either.
It's not the guilt that's going to help me. It's the understanding that that's not what I really should have been eating. Why did I eat it? Oh, I had a really bad day.
Exactly.
And it tastes so good. Well, maybe I need to work on getting a better day. Like you said, waking up in the morning, I'm going to have a great day. If I have a great day, I don't think I'm going to have to bury myself in ice cream at night sometimes. Now, everyone's different.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes. But I think that's the way I feel sometimes. I eat something I shouldn't. I don't need to feel guilty, but I need to recognize, why did I do that? And can I be a better person tomorrow? And be eating healthier foods, but not feel guilty about it.
Or am I feeling guilty over something I shouldn't be guilty over? Or just figure out a variety of ways in which I can approach the distress that happens to me today.
Yeah, and
anyway,
it all goes back to moderation in what we do. Moderation, moderation, moderation. I want to go to the last topic and then open up to the audience for a few questions. There were a number of questions, and the earlier discussion that we had prior to ours was on diabetes and weight loss. What are some things that we need to look at to see if a person is pre-diabetic, diabetic, and then what can we do in terms of reducing or changing what we do to, because yes, it can be controlled by medication, but we know that it can be controlled by other things. So, Dr. Jean-Pierre, would you talk a little bit about that and we'll go down the panel, other panelists for that.
So diet play a big role in for patient in general, whether you're diabetic or not. What you eat makes a difference. So looking into your diet and see, the type of carbs that you're eating, switch to plant-based, but try whole grains and legumes and things that you can, there's a lot of things that you can prepare. You can plan ahead. As far as, your beans, you can soak them in the night, and then so the next day they don't take as long to cook. And also try to introduce exercise. You can do 20 to 30 minutes. Sometimes it may not be 30 minutes all at once. If you press for time, you can break it into 10 minutes, but try to move more. And also, if you like somebody that like to snack, just make preparation that you snack on things that are healthy. You can do nuts, you can do fruits, and if you plan to go on a diet, don't starve yourself, because when you don't eat, if you starve yourself, you skip breakfast and you skip lunch, and then you said, well, I'm gonna have dinner. Then by the time you get to dinner, you end up eating anything and everything. So you cannot plan that way. So try to have a healthy breakfast, and maybe eat your heavy meal earlier in the day. If you're somebody that work, maybe you can eat your heavy meal at lunchtime, so by the time you get home, so dinner is very light. If you have a lunchtime, if it's, depending where you work, if you can take that time to maybe go for a walk, and try to limit carbonated drinks. Because it's one thing that, when I moved to Florida, I was so surprised. I remember the first time I worked into Harvey's supermarket, I see aisles and aisles of carbonated drinks and sweets and cookies, and I'm like, and I remember I went home and I was telling my husband, and he's like, well, they cater for the community that they serve, because that's what they want. And I have patients coming in 8 o'clock in the morning, they have a Mountain Dew in their hands. And those are diabetic patients. So you have there's habits that you have to change. It doesn't happen overnight. I always tell my patient, I don't want you to do a radical diet, because you're gonna do it for 2 weeks and then you're gonna revert to your old self. So let's try by changing weeks, 2 weeks, and then from there, then it become part of you. Then if you don't do it, then you'll miss it. Rather than telling the patient to eradicate everything and then start and put them on a strict diet. It doesn't work. And what I find for a lot of my patients, sometimes all they want is, well, give me that pill and I want to lose weight. They don't want to change their diet. They don't want to exercise. They don't want to do anything, but they want a pill to fix it. So it doesn't work that way. You have to put work. You have to do work.
Before sometimes I teach my students, before we can talk about diabetes and high blood pressure, I often talk about what people fear the most. Now, you would think sometimes if we asked a bunch of people what you fear, it would be death. That's no. There's a bigger fear out there. Stroke. Living and not being able to talk or eat or move. Or fear of a heart attack. Because a heart attack is where part of your heart dies. You only have one heart. And if you have one heart attack, 2 heart attacks, those are pieces of your heart that don't squeeze like they used to. And it goes into what we call heart failure. So I talk about that, and I teach our medical students how to recognize that. Because we talked about cancer earlier, but what's the #1 killer of women in the United States? It's not breast cancer, it's heart disease. So we teach our students that if we actually hire actors, and the actors come in and they pretend to be patients. And so the patient says, every time I walk up the stairs, I get some chest discomfort. And then right now, I'm having chest discomfort right under my chest, and it's going down my left arm, and it's been for more than 15 minutes. What do you think the student should say? What is that? That you are having, most likely, I can't prove it at the moment, but you're probably having a heart attack. We should do this first, call 911. Second thing, chew some aspirin. Have you heard of that? You know, chew. Now, probably best, if possible, not to chew the enteric-coated aspirin, because that has ingredients in it that's probably going to make you nauseated. If you can just get a plain 325 milligram aspirin, chew it up. Won't taste too good, but that's going to help with the heart attack. And then make sure that if you happen to have nitroglycerin, if you happen to be a person on that, that helps too. But what really is concerning, what about a 52-year-old woman who has high blood pressure and diabetes, and she says, you know, every time I walk around the neighborhood, I get nauseated. But if I sit down and rest, I feel a little better. But today, I'm nauseated and vomiting. Nausea, vomiting. Do you have chest pain? No, not really. I do feel a little short of breath, but I'm nauseated and vomiting. What do you think this person's having? They're having a heart attack, and they need 911, and they need somebody to look at this. So we teach the students to recognize, because you know, diabetes affects the nerves. Sometimes you don't feel things the way you would normally feel them. Sometimes the part of the heart that's having the heart attack is the bottom of the heart, right next to the stomach, giving you stomach pains. So she was convinced she was having heartburn, indigestion, and this was heart pain and an impending heart attack. Now for stroke, is a stroke painful? I would say most of them are not painful. There are a few where there's bleeding, that's painful, and they're the rare type where a blood vessel broke. The other type of stroke where a blood vessel was blocked, that's not painful. Do you give aspirin? No. What are the signs of stroke? And I'll get to why we don't give aspirin, but the signs of the stroke, some face, weakness in the arm, trouble speaking, losing balance. Now, I had a gentleman say, I'm having numbness on my face and I'm starting to drop things in my arm. Let me see if things will get better. What a huge mistake, because parts of the brain are dying, and if he gets to the hospital, we used to think that if you're getting chest pain and it's going down the arm, we all said it's a heart attack. But if you're getting weak on one side of your face and having a little trouble talking and your arm and your leg is weak, we should call that a brain attack, because it's call 911. Do not give aspirin. And when you go, if you get there fast enough, they can look and see what type of stroke it is and give a medicine that dissolves the blood clot. That's why you don't want to take aspirin, because you don't want to have aspirin on top of a medicine they're going to give you to dissolve a blood clot. You'll probably have some bleeding in other places of your body. But I mention these kinds of things to recognize, because it's the stroke and the heart attack we want to avoid, and therefore the diabetes and the high blood pressure and the smoking and overweight and the bad nutrition that can lead to diabetes and stroke, diabetes and high blood pressure leading to a stroke and a heart attack. So who should you look out for? I think, who's not here? You think of the folks here today that might have or know someone that has diabetes. You think of the grandchildren and children that it could be running in the family. You can help by raising their awareness when they're 12, 20, 30 years old. Check. You know it runs in the family? You know you might have some high blood pressure? Check to see if you have diabetes, because if you catch it early and do the right thing, you can actually avoid the problems. So let's think of it as diabetes and high blood pressure, recognize it early, and then you start to reduce the really bad things like heart attack and stroke.
Thank you. I want to take two questions from the audience because we're running out of time. I have one here and one here. I've seen the hands.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Going back to the question with cancer. Cancer rates increased in the world after the Industrial Revolution. Significantly after the Industrial Revolution. Meat eating has been with humankind after the flood. Okay? When our grandparents took 6 months to get to Europe, and we are now getting there in less than 7 hours, right? There's a reason why. It's the Industrial Revolution that created the pollution in this world that has driven to cancer rates, not meat eating. Okay? Not meat eating. Okay? Number two, right? Any study, once you use the independent variables and a dependent variable, you can get whatever results you want. Loma Linda University last study, okay, pointed out that a Mediterranean diet with fatty fish is the most important diet. I support a plant-based diet because I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. But the study revealed that a Mediterranean diet with fatty fish is more important than a vegan diet. Okay? So we should say it as it is. Thank you.
Go ahead.
First of all, this is a graph that shows the causes of death in England and Wales in 1880 versus 1997. And what you see is that back in 1880, almost nobody died of cancer and heart disease because nobody was eating meat. And after the people start eating meat, the causes of death from cancer and heart disease skyrocketed. Also, you are absolutely flat out wrong about the so-called Mediterranean diet. The studies show that fatty fish actually don't do anything to reduce the risk of death from heart disease. The only thing they do is increase your risk of stroke. And the Mediterranean diet, the advantages, whatever advantages come from the so-called Mediterranean diet, actually come from the plants and the plant sterols that are in the olive oil, not from the fatty fish. So please go back and relook at the data. You are completely flat out wrong about that. Oh my God, let's see.
So,
I can, if you want to meet after this is over with, I can show you study after study to show you why and how you're wrong. Animal tissue markedly increases the risk for cancer, period. And you say that you don't do it because you're Adventist, then please don't hand out disinformation to people that will kill them, because that's what you're doing, okay?
All right, let me take your question, and then I'll come to you two gentlemen, and we are short for time. Go ahead.
Okay. There's something I wanted to say, but I'm gonna say it in a question form. Let's go back to the Bible. Earlier somebody said something about the teeth. Our teeth is meant for a certain type of foods. Back in Genesis chapter 1, verse 29, the gentleman spoke about it earlier today. Genesis 1:29 spoke about our diet. But before that, in verse 28, who did it talk about? It talked about the animals. What meat did they eat? That's the question that I wanted y'all to think about, because that diet was supposed to have us last forever. That was an everlasting diet. There was no meat eating involved in that at all. Not only were we vegetarians, humans, animals, all animals were vegetarians.
That's actually verse 30.
Verse 30, I'm sorry. That includes the lions, that includes the whales, the alligators, all of the animals were vegetarians.
I have a question. What are we trying to prove?
Well,
Okay. No, but I'm just trying to say, what are we trying to prove? Because if I don't know what we're trying to prove, then I don't know where to take the next step.
Okay, that diet that was talked about in Genesis 1, 28, 29, 30, was supposed to have us last forever. Forever. That was the original diet.
I heard that. What are we trying to prove? I heard that.
Back to the original diet.
Well, remember, the basis of what we are having the discussion, and we are exchanging of information back and forth. So let me refocus it back, because I think we've gotten a little bit off track. And you know, the question that we were discussing, the last topic was on diabetes and how it affects blood pressure in the whole body. But so I want to get us back onto that situation, that question. So I have a question here, and then I'll come to you.
Yeah. Dr. Thomas, I have a question to ask, and then that question is on unfair and getting, when you get into a panic or something like that. I have a symptom, and my wife knows when it's coming on. And it all started when I was living in Brooklyn. And it started from the late 70s, when I used to take the train. And I used to take a train to work. And every morning that number 2 train would break down. And sometime when it break down, you know, you have to get out at and we travel in New York under the tunnel. So understand, we are not on ground, we are under the tunnel. And so I was never claustrophobic until those years when I started traveling. And it was in my mind that this train is gonna break down this morning again. Religiously, the number 2 train would break down. And so I developed a phobia. And the phobia I developed, I was in a panic mode, that I was so afraid of tunnels in traveling the train that I was traveling from Manhattan to Jersey under the Holland Tunnel. And when I was traveling there, all of a sudden the panic took me. I had to stop. No, you cannot stop in the tunnel with traffic coming down, and you cannot cross the lanes. And all of a sudden, there was a break, and the traffic started a little backing up. And I got so, I felt so bad in there that I felt that the whole world was coming down on me. And I stepped out of the car, not remembering that I should not step out of the car in the tunnel. And I stepped out of the car and I said to my friend, "You drive." He said, "What are you gonna do?" I said, "I gotta get out of this tunnel." "You cannot get out of the tunnel. You're gonna die." And I'm there and I'm praying. And I said, "God, let me out of this." I had a bottle of grape juice, the big bottle. And I drank the bottle of grape juice before I got out of the tunnel. And from that time, even in my house now, at this age, I can't lock the house up. And sometimes my wife is asking, "What is happening to you?" I am feeling that I am gonna die in the room. So I have to get up from the room, walk around. I told my doctor about it. He said, "What you do, take deep breaths at times." How can I get out of that? I travel to Barbados and I still, I'm going through the tunnel, and I'm in there, and everybody's getting crazy because here is this crazy guy get trapped in this place. Everything I drop, it's trapping me. I'm asking, how do I get over this?
So it's similar to PTSD that you just described to me. That fear that came because of the experience of being trapped in that place. So you know, it's a trauma. It brought trauma to you. And so everything that reminds you of it triggered it and put you right back in as though you were going through that again. So the technique I just described is one of the way to deal with that. Systematic desensitization, where you introduce these minor or small fearful cluster situation or room situation, whatever, after teaching you how to be relaxed, okay? And gradually do that until you get to the place where you can see yourself in the tunnel and you're okay. Okay, so it can be done, okay? But I know you're not asking me to do it right now for you. Then there are a lot of other techniques, you know, EDMR, which is helps to put the brain back, because what happens with trauma, it takes the brain, the front brain, off course, and leave you with the amygdala, if I'm pronouncing it correct. Fear, amygdala. So you're either going to run, fight, or freeze. And so, but there is help for you. And the breathing that the doctor told you, take some deep breath, that will help. But as I said, if you can find a therapist or a counselor or somebody who can, if you want to get rid of it, then that's what I would recommend that you do. And you will be surprised to realize that you can get rid of it. Let me give you something very quickly what happened to me. When I was up in Michigan, I used to work in a place, and I just came from Jamaica, so I didn't know about train crossing the road as how they do it here. So here am I driving, coming home one morning from work. I was at Andrews, and I'm driving, coming home from work, and of course, I heard the train, and I heard something, but it did not connect that it was coming across like this. And so I just kept, and I drove across the train line. And when I drove across the train line, I heard the conductor or whoever it is, blowing the horn. And I stop and I look and I realize what had just happened to me. And from that time, every time I hear a train, and right up here, a little past where I live on 92, after I leave Memorial, 92 going to Combi, train there. And I had to decide that, I said, Lorna, other people are driving on the road going, and you're on the same road. Nothing is going to happen to you. The train is over there. You're hearing it, and you're going to hear train, but you're okay. I said, you want to know that you're okay? What happened to these people who are driving, passing you and going, you're on the same road with them. You're okay. You're not crossing the train line. And you know differently now. So keep going. So now the train doesn't bother. Hearing the train, I don't freeze and start worrying that, oh my God, I'm going to cross the train line and it's going to kill me. It doesn't happen anymore because I stop and, wait. Look at these they're right here with me. We're not crossing the train line. I'm hearing the train. The train is somewhere else. It's right over there. I can see it. but I'm not crossing it, and I'm okay. I am safe. I am not where I was 25 years ago.
Amen. All right. Go ahead with your question.
I have one question for the entire panel, if you're all willing to answer it. As I've been battling stage 3 brain cancer, anaplastic astrocytoma from the age of 16 now to the age of 27, technically 28, you know, if you count up the 9 months. Basically, I had one question to ask you. Can you move the hemispheres and parts of your brain? And would that be able to help possibly confuse the tumor or keep the tumor stable? If like you're like, I've tried bringing both hemispheres together. I've lifted both hemispheres one at a time of my brain and cranium. And so I'm very interested in that.
Thank you.
I didn't hear the main part of the question. Is there, what was the, I didn't hear what you
He's been
said.
battling cancer now for his entire life.
11 and a half years. I was diagnosed at the age of 16. I was diagnosed at the age of 16 as a junior in high school with they found a mass in my head at Lakeland Regional Medical Center. You know, I was at the top of the world, everything like that, and I was curious about brain movement and tumor stalling.
So he's asking if we can open the two hemisphere and trick the cancer, the brain cancer somehow.
I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that question. It's not. It's a field of medicine that I'm not familiar with. Sorry.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say thank everyone for participating this afternoon. I thought we've had a lively discussion and present some information. And I'm going to take one more question and then we have to wrap it up because we have our Singspiration for this afternoon. Brief question.
Hello, good evening. I just want to ask a question. I've stopped eating meat for about maybe 30 years. I'm on a vegetarian diet, but not fully. I eat fish. I had fish and most of vegetables, fruits and things like that, nuts and so forth. I drink ginger, take turmeric, you name it. I don't use sugar in my diet. Everything mostly I try to do natural. But I notice I'm having this arthritis in my knee. When I sit for too long and to get up to walk, my knee pains and hurt. But I don't know what is causing it because like they say I don't eat, I try to avoid the Irish potato, I try to avoid eggplant, I try to avoid tomatoes, I try to avoid corn, things that they say like nightshade food, I try to avoid it. But I don't know what happened, I still having that pain in the knee. So I'm asking, what can I do to make the difference? What can I do to...
Okay, I'd like to address that this way. We are, well, a couple of statements. We're 6,000 years from the perfect person. And there are generational things that have come down to us in our genes while we may be doing the very best we can. Our grandparents, their grandparents, or someone else, we have to live that life in addition to what we're trying to do for ourselves. So even though we may be doing the absolute best and never do anything outside of what thus saith the Lord, we have cancer. We have parasites. There is nothing. We have heart attacks. And there is nothing that we could have done to stop that. We can only try to, I think the term is mitigate it, or actually try to live with it, or do the best we can. And then, of course, God does the healing. We can't forget that. All things are possible with Him. So as to exactly what you're doing to get your arthritis, it may be nothing that you're doing.
What I would suggest is, I mentioned earlier that, again, if you look at the research, sea animals are some of the most toxin-laden animals out there. So I would at least do a trial of 6 to 8 weeks with no fish at all, and see if that helped with the pain and the arthritis, because I think that that will make a huge difference. Just cut out all of the animal tissue, all of the fish, and see if that makes an improvement in the inflammation, because I think the fish is driving the inflammation in your joints, and you'll feel a lot better. Okay?
All right. Thank you. We have one final question, and then we're going to wrap up.
Yeah, I think all of us, are here because we're interested in health in general, and we're all responsible to make decisions for ourselves, and we might be an influence on our family and those in our immediate circle. But my question is for the panel, what do you think that each of us can do to affect like a greater social change, right? Because God forbid any one of us here have an accident, end up in the hospital or a nursing home or rehab, or if you have kids in school or somebody, eating the school lunch. There's a lot of things we don't have control over. The schools are going to serve milk to the kids, right? The nursing homes, all these institutions are mandated in what they have to include on the plate, and the options are limited, and any one of us, our life could change in a flash, and we could lose control over what we put in our mouth, and we have to eat what's put in front of us. What can we do as individuals or together to help affect some societal change that for ourselves, God forbid, or for our loved ones, God forbid?
Thank you. Good question. Who would like to start?
I mean, a lot of institutions now are very conscious as far as the needs of different people. They do have a lot of institutions have a plant-based diet in their menus that you can, pick and choose and see what you like. I mean, even some of the hospitals, they have plant-based food that they offer that you can select. And at the school, I know most school lunches now, they try to be more healthy by cutting out some of the processed, the carbonated drinks, and serve more veggies and fruits to the kids.
You guys remember Jesus on the mountainside when he did the Sermon on the Mount? And then you remember Jesus in the temple turning over tables? Y'all want to see Jesus turning over tables. Because when it comes to serving bad food to kids, I feel like turning over tables. There's no excuse for serving kids unhealthy food. And right now, I am involved with a group, and we are interacting with the USDA about the school lunch program and the fact that they are still serving children of color dairy foods, even though they know it's going to make them sick. We have got to petition school boards, USDA, and tell them that it is racist to continue giving kids food that they know they cannot tolerate. It is inexcusable, and it needs to stop.
Yeah, so I think that how do you affect change? Because we really do have control over people closest to us. But when you talk about societal change and getting that empowerment, that you don't have to be silent, you can, and I think you alluded to part of it, learn the process. Who makes the decisions? What are they basing the decisions on? I mean, I've worked with some of these folks, and they are well-meaning people, but they need the science. They need people to participate in the science. They need the facts. Then understanding the process, how the school board works, how the USDA works, how the FDA works, and finding out where can you make your voice heard and how can we do it in unison with what you believe in. Those are things, because there will be different opinions, and we want them to have those opinions before they make these decisions that will affect our children.
Thank you. Sister Thomas, did you want to add something on that? No. Okay.
I didn't completely understood the question, but when Dr. Haight responded to it, I think I figured out what was asked. So no, I don't have anything to say.
Thank you. So I want to say thank you to our panelists. Will you please give them a... So we've come to the end of our program. I want to thank each of you for your participation. There was a very good exchange of ideas and thoughts for the entire church, and I want to thank you for your participation and coming out this afternoon. We're going to go into the next part of our program, which is a Singspiration. So I'm going to turn it over to Pastor, and he will take it from here.